Thank you for joining me here on the last segment of today's show, talking some more about the preseason, inching closer and closer to seeing some actual football back on our screens. I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to seeing some more of the new kickoff formats, but also there's a lot of storylines that you could look into in the preseason as well. It's not just about not actual football, seeing some players that maybe you're not too familiar with. You do get to see some exciting things, and it doesn't fall too far off from the quarterbacks that you're potentially going to see. Some of the rookies, some of the guys that are trying to make a roster spot. I think all of that is pretty interesting, at least to me, when talking about the preseason. And one of the first games, the first game that we're going to see, is between the Carolina Panthers and the New England Patriots. That one is set to kick off, I think, simultaneously with the Giants and Lions game tomorrow. Those are the only two games on tomorrow. But with the Carolina Panthers and the New England Patriots, talking about that game tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we're talking not only about the two lowest scoring teams from a year ago, but what's exciting about this is the potential to see the number 3 overall pick, Drake Maye, in his first sort of NFL action. Again, we're still talking about the preseason, but getting to see where Drake Maye is now, where this entire journey has taken him through voluntary workouts, mini camp, training camp now. You would hope to have seen some development and at least some sort of a, not polished look, but some improvement at least from Drake Maye. I think you've seen some flashes, some ups and downs so far through training camp, and that's all right just because he's not going to be the starter, so he doesn't really have too much pressure on him just yet. The plan was always to have Jacoby Brissett be this bridge guy and have him be that bridge guy for as long as Drake Maye needed to look as prepared as he can be when it is his time to start. But his journey will start with this preseason game, and he will be playing in this game after we kind of had the idea that Caleb could have played in last week's Hall of Fame game. He was ultimately held out of that, and now we'll see Drake Maye be the first quarterback to be playing in the preseason, to get some action here in the offseason, drafted in this first round. And Jerod Mayo, the new head coach of the New England Patriots, just basically confirmed that in one of his recent interviews that he did, when he said, when he gets in the game, we'll talk about that, but he will play, talking about Drake Maye. Everyone who is healthy enough to play in the game will play in the game. So he kept it short and sweet, basically having all these, not only Jacoby Brissett and Drake Maye play, but also we're going to see some Joe Milton. We're going to see Bailey Zappi in this game as well. We're going to see all 4 quarterbacks take some snaps, and how those snaps are distributed. How many snaps does Jacoby Brissett play? Maybe Drake Maye plays a little bit more than everybody else, or maybe just each quarterback plays a quarter of the NFL game, obviously. So that's my thinking. I'm assuming they're each going to play a quarter, but we're going to see a lot of this team, and I think not only talking about the quarterback play, obviously, but just diverting away from the quarterbacks and talking about this Patriots team overall and how new it is. Obviously, starting a new era with Jerod Mayo. We're going to see a lot of new faces. Maybe the way that they play is a little bit different, not being so old school and vanilla a little bit like they were with Bill Belichick. Maybe Jerod Mayo brings a different flavor to that. Having Van Pelt as their new offensive coordinator could bring some more excitement to them. It is a system that Jacoby Brissett is already familiar with, so that could help them out in the long run overall. But it is exciting just to see this new era of Patriots getting underway. It still looks a little bit weird with not having Bill Belichick out there, but with this quarterback play, obviously that's going to be the main storyline around it. Once Drake Maye does get into that game and how he runs this offense and who, is playing alongside with him, he has some exciting weapons as well with young wide receivers like Jalen Polk, also Javon Baker. They've been getting rave reviews throughout training camp as well. Seeing those guys and where they are along their journeys to go along with Drake Maye, I think will be exciting to see in tomorrow's game. We're not, unfortunately, going to see everyone playing. Obviously, the Carolina Panthers have said that Bryce Young is not going to play, so that's another team, obviously, on the other side of things, trying to figure out their offense, their new identity with a new head coach of their own in Dave Canales. We're not going to see Bryce Young. That's unfortunate, but still, even with the Panthers as well, talking about them and starting this new era. They got some new weapons, some new support systems for Bryce Young to be playing in there. We might see some of those guys. Unfortunately, we're not going to see a guy like Jonathan Brooks, the star running back from Texas that they drafted. He's dealing still with that knee injury that he suffered in college. But that's pretty much where things stand right now. Still going back to Drake Maye, we have seen, like I said before, some encouraging signs from Drake Maye already in training camp. The reports say that Jacoby Brissett and Drake Maye have already been splitting time with the first team offense, so that's already pretty encouraging for Drake Maye and where he is. Coming off of the season that he did at UNC, I think, too, it wasn't as great of the season prior to that he had, and he really put his name on the map. To follow it up by the year that he had in 2023, not awful, but it just was a dip clearly in the year that he had before that. So where he is already seeing some snaps with the first team offense is pretty encouraging. I expect Jacoby Brissett to probably start this game, followed up by Drake Maye and then Joe Milton and maybe Bailey Zappi as well, potentially in that order. But I think just bringing this up now and, updating you guys on this, I wanted to bring it up because in some of these games we're not going to see some of the rookie quarterbacks or some of these starting quarterbacks play, and I'm not a really big fan of that. They don't have to play the first game, but I think specifically for the rookies, and going back to last weekend, the Chicago Bears, seeing how the Bears decided to hold off on Caleb and not letting him go out there, I felt that, what would have it done for Caleb Williams if he played maybe one or two drives. He didn't have to go and play a whole half or anything like that, but I would have loved to have seen him play already in that Hall of Fame game, and having that Hall of Fame game in there is almost just an additional week to get Caleb prepared, so I didn't really see too much of the harm in, having him out there for a drive or two, but that's beside the point. We're moving on to this week now. We're going to see Caleb this week on Saturday, I believe, to go along with Jaden Daniels, who's also going to be playing in his first preseason action. When the Minnesota Vikings play, I'm sure we're going to see J.J. McCarthy. And talking about some of these other quarterbacks that are just not rookies, I'm sure we're not going to see Aaron Rodgers play in his game alongside the Commanders. They play against each other. He's going to be held off. We're going to see Michael Penix play as well in the Falcons' first preseason game. Kirk Cousins is unlikely to play, but at least we get to see Michael Penix. That's another one that, draws a lot of eyes with the surprise pick that he was for the Falcons. Where's he at in his development? That'll be something certainly to tune into. And talking again of those guys that I mentioned not being rookies, Jordan Love is going to get some preseason action in the first game as well. And it is a little surprising just because usually teams hold off on them at least until the second week maybe, and then the third week they go back to other guys that they like to get some last looks in before they make the roster cuts. But I was pretty surprised to see Jordan Love will be playing in the preseason. Talking about the Houston Texans and how they also played last week in the Hall of Fame game, they are set to play their starters this week, so we're going to get our first looks at C.J. Stroud, Stephon Diggs out there, Tank Dell and how he's recovering from his injury. They're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, and along those lines, we're also going to see Justin Fields play. Russell Wilson has been ruled out. Mike Tomlin said today that he will not be playing, but seeing this Steelers team now, a lot of newness that they brought in with some weapons, new receiving core. The offensive line is also new. You're going to see Justin Fields now in a new team. How is he looking with a new system, obviously, with Arthur Smith coming in as well? I think this week is going to have a lot of things to talk about, which is great for me, but also we're going to see a lot of, the progression of these quarterbacks, not just rookie ones, but some new names in new places as well. It should make for an exciting preseason. That's what the preseason pretty much is overall. Seeing where these guys are in their development, seeing, especially this year, some of the new rules and formats and things that the NFL is trying to incorporate, all makes it a better spectacle than just realizing it is essentially just practice. But regardless of that point, I'm certainly going to be tuning into these games. I'm excited to see Drake Maye play whenever he gets to play, how many snaps he gets. It should be pretty telling. It is only the first week of preseason, but still, it should be something to watch if you guys have nothing else going on this weekend. But that is pretty much all I wanted to get to on today's show. That'll wrap it up for today's episode. I want to thank you guys for joining me on today's show. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, as well as following the network on all forms of social media. If you want to see more of this show specifically going forward, check out both YouTube channels, the Podcast Network channel and the GSMC Sports Network channel. For all the live shows are on there, recorded, the individual segment videos as well, and YouTube shorts on top of that. And as a final reminder, tune in every weekday to catch these live episodes each weekday, like I said, at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, to talk some more NFL, some of the latest storylines in this league with me, Manny Maradiaga, as your host. Thanking you again for joining me, and I hope to see you guys back here with me again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. 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 Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to